Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you, and the message reads like this. Hello my brother, how are you? Can you please post my story as anonymous? First of all, I want to say that I always listen to all of your episodes that you upload on YouTube, and whenever I am at work, it gives me a peace of mind when I will be listening to the confession. Recently I listened to this other confession whereby there was a man who was saying that there were men who died. All of those men that died, they were drivers. My brother, that is the truth, and I want to thank you for exposing all of the evils that other people do, because these things, they do exist, especially at the workplaces. There is a lot of witchcraft that goes on. My brother, my story goes on like this. When I came here to South Africa, this was in 2020. That was when I came to South Africa. Then there was this other white farmer who found me and my wife, because when we came here, we did not know anyone. So we only said that if we were going to find a job in the farms, then things were going to be okay. So me and my wife, we were just sleeping by the side of the road. That was when we met that farmer. That farmer then asked us what we were doing close to his farm. That was when my wife came out of this other bridge. Then he asked, what was I doing with that woman? And I told him that this was my wife. He thought that maybe I was lying, but when we came here to South Africa, me and my wife, we had a copy of our marriage certificate as well as some of my original certificate, because I am a mechanic, and as well as me, I am a driver, and I know how to do a little bit of panel beating. When I had showed him all of my certificates, he was really impressed, and he said that even though he was not hiring at that moment, but he was really interested in me, and he wanted me to work for him. That is how I found a job at that farm that I started working on at the time when I had arrived here in South Africa. So whilst I was working at that farm, then that man, he then started to be more like friends with me, because a lot of guys that were working at that farm, it didn't matter if those guys, they were from Zim or from South Africa or from Mozambique. Most of them, they didn't know how to communicate with that white farmer, because that man, he was not an African speaking man, so he was an English speaking man. Most of the guys that were there who grew up in the farms, they only knew how to speak a little bit of Afrikaans. And the guys from Zim, most of them that I found, they didn't even know how to write a sentence or how to communicate with them in English. On most days, he would always complain because he had to communicate with his workers using sign languages. So there was always a lot of problems that kept on happening. So when he saw all of my particulars, he was really interested in me. And the more that we communicated with each other, the more that I found favor in his eyes. So at that farm, my brother, we used to cultivate tomatoes as well as potatoes. So what would happen is that, there are those guinea fowl. So they would come and they will pick up on the tomatoes, or they would go into the fields where we will be cultivating the potatoes. Then they will cause a lot of trouble in there, as well as those wild pigs. They were the ones that were giving that farmer a lot of trouble. So what he used to do is that there was someone who used to stand guard over those fields that will be having the tomatoes during the day as well as in the evening. So when I started working, I was working as a man who used to chase away the wild pigs as well as the guinea fowl at night, and in the morning then a woman will be working. So the problem was that the woman that was working in the afternoon, she could not communicate properly with that farmer. So there was always problem. He then said that, I want your wife to come and work during the afternoon, then in the evening you'll be working. So this caused a lot of tension. After that woman had been fired, and my wife, she then started working in her place. So after that, that was when that white farmer said that he wanted me to join him in the workshop, since I was an experienced mechanic, and on his farm there were guys that were working as mechanics, but they had learned how to do mechanics whilst on the job. None of them had ever gone to school, so they were struggling a lot. Sometimes they would end up fitting some parts that were not correct. So I then started working in the workshop as the head mechanic. This gave that tension. This caused that tension to become even more, because they were saying, this man, he has not even worked on this farm for more than 2 months. Why is it that this man, he is now the head of the workshop, whilst we have worked for this white farmer for many, many years? Some of the people that were working on that workshop, I had found them working at that farm, and most of them, they said that even when they were still young boys, they were working on that farm. Some had even worked for that same white farmer for more than 20 years. So they expected that white farmer to pay them according to the years that they had worked. But one thing that I learned when I was now so close to that white farmer is that they don't pay you because of the years that you have worked for them, but they pay you according to the experience as well as the know-how you will bring into the company. So when I started working on that farm, because of my knowledge, that was when I started earning a lot of money, more than the people that I had found they working on that same farm. This caused a lot of tension. When I would wake up in the morning, I would find out that there would be someone who would have dumped some 10-cent coin on my doorstep. What I will do is that I will just take salt, then I'll just sprinkle some salt on those coins, then I would take them and I would go and throw them away. A lot of people, they hated me. Even people from Zim, they really hated me. And I started to hear some rumors that there was this other man whom I had fought with, but not like physically fighting. That man, he was the tractor driver on that farm. So the way that he used to drive the truck, it was not okay, because each and every time when he would damage the tractor, then he would bring the tractor to the shed, and he would not even tell me that there is a damage on the tractor. By the time that the tractor would return to the workshop, and when the boss would find out that there is so much damage on the tractor, as in when he would see the parts that will be needed for that tractor to be fixed again, he will start complaining and saying that I was the one who had not done a proper job. I then went and I spoke with my brother, thinking that he was from Zim as well. I was from Zim. We were going to understand each other. I said, why are you trying to make my job to be so hard? I need this job the same way that you need the job. Let us try to work together. There is no reason for us to be fighting against each other. I am the one who is responsible for the upkeep of all of these vehicles that are here on this farm. So when you drive these vehicles and when you just bring them to the shed, if you find out that there is a fault, you need to report that fault to me, because we had this logbook whereby if a driver finds out that there is a fault on the vehicle whereby you'll be driving, he's supposed to log into that book and write the suspected fault so that I can quickly attend to that vehicle. So all of those drivers, they had stopped logging in properly. They will just say that everything is okay, everything is okay. Then all of a sudden, when it will be very busy at that farm, like when we will be harvesting potatoes or anything, that is when the farmer would see that all the vehicles, they are not in good working condition. Feeling so angry, he would come and insult me, and he'll say that I was the one who was not okay. So I then started fighting with that guy, but we were just exchanging some bad words, and he then said that I was going to find out that who was he. He then returned back home to Zim. When he returned back home to Zim, I didn't think that he was going to try to do something that was sinister, but he went to Zim and he visited this other traditional healer. All that he wanted was to take my life, simply because I had told him that he was supposed to do his job in a proper fashion. He returned back to South Africa. When he returned back to South Africa, he had these other fruits that are called matowe. When he brought those fruits that were dried back to South Africa, he said that he wanted to give me some of those fruits, but I was really scared because I felt that my heart, it was like beating very fast. But when he gave me those dried fruits, we were at work and everyone was just sitting around and everyone was eating those dried fruits. So I was afraid that I was going to humiliate him. So I took those fruits and I started eating them. When I started eating them, my brother, I felt that there was something wrong with me. After a few days, then I started to have severe diarrhea. Then I visited this other prophet. That prophet that I visited, what he used to do, my brother, it is like magic. He will be holding his walking stick, then he would press his walking stick against this other white cloth that he had hanging in his room that he used to stay in. When you will be pressing that white robe, then you would see all the images that he wanted you to see on that cloth. That is what I saw that the man, he traveled back to Zim and he then started going around visiting some traditional healers, and he told them that he wanted me to die. But lucky enough, my ancestors, they then fought for me. I only got sick, my brother, and that prophet told me that he was not very powerful to chase away that illness. All that I had to do was that I had to stop working at that farm. I had to find another job. That was a very tough decision, my brother, but I didn't have a choice at all. Without having anything, me and my wife, we walked away from that farm. I didn't even say goodbye to the man who had hired me. From there on, I came into the location where I am currently staying. But when I compare the salary that I was earning whilst I was at that farm, life was good because we had accommodation, we had electricity. Even that man, he used to buy food for us as well as water. But right now, where I am staying, my brother, life is very difficult. I try to get some customers here and there, but it is never the same. And I can say that the man succeeded because all that he wanted was to remove me from that farm, and they were very happy the day that they saw me and my wife packing our bags. I saw everyone looking at us with such excitement, and they didn't even go and report to our boss, because this is what they used to do in the farms. What they do is that they usually gossip a lot with the boss. If anything will be happening, there will be someone who would text message to the boss. But on that day, there was no one who even sold me out to the boss, because they were afraid that if they were going to text message the boss, then the boss was going to come and stop me and say that you are going to be working here, you are not going anywhere. Me and my wife, we packed our few belongings, then we got onto the taxi. Already I had spoken with this other man we had met at church. He was also a mechanic. So first, when I arrived in that location where he is staying, we stayed at his house. After that, I moved on and I started having my small workshop. But life is very hard, my brother. We are just simply surviving. Things are never the same.